Good evening. Thanks so much for coming this evening. It's an issue I think that we have all been kind of watching and concerned about for a while. So my name is Arlette Preston. I'm sorry, I'm going to pull this mic away from my mouth a little bit. My name is Arlette Preston, and I have been getting calls, as well as I think probably most of us on the City Commission, about the issue in regards to speeding, drag racing on the streets, the noise that comes from that. And I just thought that it would be helpful to provide a forum for us to hear about it from you. It started, I think, at least the complaints started coming into my email last summer, and by fall, it was getting quite bad. So I put it on the agenda, but nothing really happened from that. So that's the other purpose for this forum tonight, is to try to gather some information and figure out some strategies for going forward. So we're going to start off with a presentation from the police chief. The police department has done some things in response to the concerns that they've been hearing as well. And Mayor Mahoney is here to listen as well. And Brenda Derrick, she is from the engineering department, thinking that there may be some questions in regards to the roadways. And yeah, Police Chief Zabolski will start it off. So I'm going to turn it over to him. He's going to talk for a little bit, and then we'll kind of open it up from there. So thanks for coming.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to cover a few things here, and actually this has been an issue here in Fargo for longer than this past summer. I think everyone recognizes that, and when I first came in fall of 2020, was an issue that a lot of the folks in the department brought forward, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And basically what I want to do is inform you of what we've been doing out there. Our team, although a little bit short-staffed, is resilient, committed, and they've really been out there doing everything they can to enforce traffic, especially these speeders. But there's some other ideas that we have and other tools that we want to talk about that will help us address this a little bit further as well. So just as a data point start, if you look at, those are all speeding and those types of violations that we're talking about. So in 2021, we wrote more speeding tickets than in the 2 years prior. And overall, if you look at the numbers, it was more like a normal 2019 pre-COVID in terms of enforcement. So that's good, but what we're really trying to hone in on is quality enforcement. So we can write a lot of tickets, but are we hitting the things that we need to hit? Are we in the areas that we need to be in? And that's where you'll see our intelligence and analysis unit has done some work, and it's starting to inform our deployments as well as many of the communications from all of you, and our cops see this all the time. And it's extremely frustrating for everybody, but we've got a couple of ideas. So hotspot number one, in last October, and what we did early in 2021 is try to get our motorcycles functional. We had 3 really nice Harley motorcycles from our traffic safety unit that was disbanded in 2016. And we got those folks prepped, and it took through the summer to do that. And we started to do some additional enforcement starting in October. So we're looking at the last 6 months, October through April 30th. And that hotspot area has a lot to do with 10th Street North, campus area. And if you look at the number of stops, so 1,627 stops in that area, 1,361 tickets. Of those, 298 were what we're calling dangerous driving, which consists of all of the different categories: speeding, reckless driving, careless driving, and exhibition driving. So as you look at the data, that's what those numbers refer to. So that's about 22% of the tickets issued had to do with speed or related speed or exhibition driving issues in that particular area. Going down on the south end, the 2 other hotspots we looked at, same time frame. On the southwest side of town, 729 stops, 622 tickets, 98 dangerous driving related. And on the southeast side of town, 805 stops, 577 tickets, 104 dangerous driving related. So similar, they're about 16 and 18% in terms of ratio of tickets issued for dangerous driving compared to, tickets issued, and then you can see the total number of stops. So one thing I think I do want to stress is that while we don't always see the police out there, our cops are really out there making stops, enforcing what they can, and using every means available to them to do that. And our force doesn't have that dedicated unit, so these are cops that are taking calls for service, and as time allows they're going after these proactive stops. It's led to not only some enforcement with the speeding, but a lot of other great arrests in terms of interdicting drugs, weapons, and other kinds of activities. So they are very active, but we'd certainly like to expand that.
Chief, just one question. How many people here tonight are from Southside, if you'd raise your hands? And then how many are from Northside? Thank you.
Okay, so let's continue on here a little bit. So one of the things that's happened over time, if you look at this chart, this is a chart of fleeing incidents. There has been over several years almost a culture or a preponderance of cars that don't stop for our officers. Because of public safety, we don't chase traffic violators because it's very dangerous for our officers, it's very dangerous for you. I've worked in several different places where we had pursuits back in the day, and you don't want to be at the fatal accident where some innocent person got killed because we were chasing a traffic violator. And I think the predominant wisdom on that for probably 15 years plus is that we don't pursue for those things unless we've got some other kind of violent crime or weapon or some other significant incident like that. So our cops are kind of left with that. It's a frustration, but they all understand why. In addition, there's just been a growth of people who have decided, you know what, I know they're not stopping me for traffic, I'm not going to stop, and they flee. And so if you look at this chart, and here's kind of what's happened over time. We talked about the traffic safety unit. Look at 2016 and look at 2017. October of 2016, our traffic safety unit was disbanded. That was a dedicated unit. They didn't take calls for service. They did strict traffic enforcement. They were out on the bikes, and that was their main focus. And we could send them throughout the city at different times and things of that nature to address traffic issues. And so what's kind of interesting when you look at that is right after 2016, you see the numbers of fleeing vehicles start to rise. And then secondarily, COVID-19, 20 and 21, it just seemed to escalate that even more. And so our cops are out there trying to stop cars. And many of these folks who aren't stopping, I'm sure it's a mixed bag of I've got mom and dad's car, maybe I've got alcohol, drugs, whatever, to someone who's involved in criminal activity that we just don't know about, or this, why should I stop? I don't have a license, right? So, a number of different things. But that has definitely taken off. Our tools have gotten less and less. So here's what we're looking at over the last 5 years. And I also want to, as I'm doing this, I want to credit our intelligence and analysis unit, which just got in place with the hires January 31st of this year. That was part of our department reorganization to be able to better analyze what we're doing and whether or not we're being successful. They were able to pull this data for us tonight so we could have this little presentation, did a nice job. But you can see the huge increase in cars that have fled from us. Again, after 2016, for what, without the traffic unit, that's not the only reason, but it's kind of an interesting point in time. Those started to go up. Ratio data, and this will probably shock you. If you look at that 2021, the 1:55 means that for every 55 traffic stop, one person flees from us. That's a really high ratio. And if we make, how many thousands of stops, every 55 stops, someone's fleeing. And we don't often catch those people. Now, sometimes, again, dangerously, they continue at their high rate of speed and they crash. And some of our cops are able to, get them that way and catch them after they crash and catch them on foot, but not all of the time. And on the right side is so we're monitoring this now with our IAU unit on a monthly basis. And through the first 3 months of this year, our ratio is actually 1 per 22 stops. People are fleeing from us. A lot of people would say, these cars are taken off because they're stolen. Actually not. Only 24% of the cars that fled from us were stolen vehicles. The rest, 64%, are not stolen. So there's, again, issues here that we would need some help with. We've got great technology now with our in-car cameras. Vast majority of the time, we get license plates, and we know who the plate and the owner of the car is, and this is kind of leading to one of our other discussion points in terms of some legislative assistance. The other side of the coin that we need to work with our state prosecutors is that we are seeing fewer prosecutions for fleeing. If you look at the 2020, 49% and we don't get that many fleeing cases. Oftentimes it's part of several other cases. The random people that just flee on their own volition, we don't have many of those that are caught and prosecuted, but we try to put cases together. If you look in 2021, 49% of the cases we sent over were not prosecuted. Now that's a combination, not just on the prosecutor's side, and we may not have a good enough case for them to issue, but there also doesn't seem to be a huge flavor in terms of prosecuting these cases. And they might not understand the full spectrum of this either. That's a conversation that we have to have going forward with them. But as we pulled out our standalone cases, 2020 and 2021, these were just cases where the only offense was fleeing, Class A misdemeanor. Those folks got a couple of days. One person got 16 days. Well, that's not much of a deterrent factor, considering we hardly ever catch them, and then when we do catch them, they're hardly getting a penalty. Why would they stop, right? So in summary, this is kind of a summary point. Stuff we've talked about. 1 out of 55 persons fleeing, 24% are stolen, which is the vast majority are not. Not great prosecution rates. We've got a huge increase over the last 5 years in cars that flee from us. So what's our plan? All right, so this summer, and as I said last year, I came in October of 20. We were fortunate enough, although we didn't have our traffic safety unit, we still had the motorcycles. They were in great shape. We just had to do a little spiffing up, and we had to get our motorcycle operators recertified. So we sent a group of folks down to South Dakota last summer to do that. By the time they got back, we got the bikes out a little bit last fall, but not too much. But this year, they'll fully functional, and we'll have a group out there. We're going to be concentrating in these hot spots. So we're kind of a mini TSU at this juncture. We'll be utilizing our intelligence and analysis to identify that, although we already know where most of those spots are. The racing and the exhibitionists and that whole group that likes to come through town often does a loop around the whole city, University, 52nd, 45th, up and around Maine, and they seem to be real prevalent in that area. But in terms of enforcement options, we've already just talked to North Dakota Highway Patrol, Cass County, and West Fargo, and we formed a little partnership because they're having the same issues. They're out in those jurisdictions as well. And we're going to be using some additional technology, air enforcement with North Dakota Highway Patrol that can also operate in the evening hours in terms of fleeing vehicles and our ability to now just track them through the air, watch where they go and then, corral them in and make the arrest. We have a city ordinance that for speed violations, for non-criminal violations, and speeding is one of them, that attaches owner responsibility to that vehicle. That has rarely been used. Our city attorney dug that up last year for us. That's another thing that we've trained our cops on and we're going to be following up on when we do these directed traffic enforcement operations. So as the owner of the vehicle, if your son, daughter, whoever is driving that car and they're speeding and we try and stop them and they flee, we don't have a fleeing piece yet to do with, but we do have the city ordinance for the speed violation. So as often as we can, we'll be going to the registered owner's house. You have the opportunity to tell us who is driving the car, or you have the opportunity to receive a ticket for the violation as the owner. Then you can go to court and speak to the judge about it and go from there. But that is not used. We're going to be pulling out that tool. So we're going to really be following up on who these people are. And again, through intelligence and analysis, these groups are out there. So they're kind of identifiable. We'll be working on identifying who these people are, attaching them to certain vehicles. So as we're out in these special enforcement operations, we'll have a good idea of who we're dealing with. We still have to be able to identify in some fashion, but we will know who's with what car kind of thing. And then following up with our prosecutors as we put these together and making sure that we're getting some prosecutions out of these cases. So that's this year plan. Going forward, strategic and beyond, we do need to recreate our traffic safety unit. I have put in, that's part of a budget request from the police department for our 2023 budget. This has to be a dedicated, this can't be patrol in between calls. It's got to be a standalone traffic safety unit to focus on these areas. We need it. And as the city continues to grow, we're going to need it more. And that would be an important component. We'll continue our partnerships. We're continuing to research technology. There's some cities use traffic camera license plate identifiers to issue citations. That's not legal in North Dakota. So there's some legislative things that we're considering to work on or suggest. Star Chaser, there's some technology out there that we can attach to our vehicles that will shoot a magnet on the vehicle that flees, and then we can track it electronically and again kind of corral those people in. So we're looking at a number of different options to up our game and up our enforcement tools. Senator Merrill Pipcorn reached out to me last fall after we had a discussion at a commission meeting, and I talked about needing some legislative help. And so I've sent him a lot of this information. He's reaching out to other legislators to try and work on this issue, and focus being number one, all fleeing should be a felony right out of the gate. It's dangerous to the public, and there needs to be a higher penalty. And we need an owner responsibility piece for fleeing vehicles in the same way we have the city ordinance, where absent your car being stolen and other reasonable exceptions, you'll have the chance to tell us who was driving the car. I guess if it was you, you're not going to tell us. You'll get the ticket. And so it's not a felony for that owner, but it would be a significant fine type of a forfeiture, just like they have in other states. So I've given Senator Pipcorn Wisconsin's statutory law, because we did have that in Wisconsin, for him to work with and try and look at and see if we can get that through North Dakota legislatures. I've reached out to our area regional chiefs and sheriffs and the Chief of Police Association, the chiefs out west. It's an issue for all of us. And Sheriff Johnner is working with the Sheriff's Association as well. So we are rallying everyone around this particular statewide issue. So we're feeling pretty optimistic about maybe helping to get some legislative assistance in this area. And we're going to continue to use all legal means here to enforce this stuff, which means that some people might have their cars or bikes towed. So when you flee in a vehicle, especially if it's a felony case, and we locate that vehicle in relative time and proximity, there is a probable cause exception to the Fourth Amendment, which means in that car is evidence of who was driving it. Prints, DNA, other paper identifiers, and we will seize that vehicle, we'll process it. If we have to impound it to do that, that's what we're going to do as well. So again, trying to give everyone every reasonable opportunity to work with us, but we're going to go after this pretty hard. And then just really persistent follow-up on who those perpetrators are and following up with our prosecutors. So that's it in an overview on my end.
So hopefully that gave you some indication of where we are and what's happening and some of the plans for starting to address it. Question was asked before if you're from south or north. The complaints I've been getting are mostly around 52nd Avenue South, 45th Street, 25th Street, University, both north and south, and now this evening it sounds like even up on 19th Avenue North a bit. There certainly are other speeding kinds of concerns within neighborhoods, but perhaps not quite with the intention of drag racing, but speeding overall. Tonight, we certainly will take comments also on just generalized speeding concerns, but because that could be also feeding this kind of culture of speeding, but we really would like to focus on the street racing issue a bit. So what we are prepared to do, there are these fancy little boxes, and we would love to actually hear about your concerns and what's happening in the neighborhoods. It certainly is a public safety issue from the perspective of the speed, obviously, but also a public nuisance and a public health issue with the noise. People are waking up in the middle of the night because of it. So, it comes from both a public safety concern as well as a public health, public nuisance kind of concern. So anyone that wants to.
So the boxes are microphones, so just raise your hand and one of our staff will give you the box, and then you can speak. Katie, there's one speaker right here.
So the really
Katie,
important
to
part
your
of this,
left.
guys, is there's an X on this box. We're going to make sure that you speak
Right there.
into the X, because we have people that are also watching online, and they can't hear you if you don't speak into this X, okay?
Katie, to your right.
And I apologize, I should announce right up front that this is being broadcast so that people who aren't able to be here tonight can see the recording, and also anyone that wants to watch it tonight as well. So go right ahead,
Good
sir.
enough? Is that good enough? Can you hear me?
Works good.
Yep, we can hear
Okay,
you.
I'll give it a try, okay? My name's Elliot Kavanaugh. I've lived in Fargo since 1972. 2 blocks off University on South University, south of the interstate. 2 blocks east of McDonald's restaurant, or closer yet, the Kmart store, okay?
Gotcha.
This is a progressive problem. There was a time I heard no noise on University, and I would guess that now it's reached a point where about 10, 11 o'clock at night, from Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday night, the din starts, and it's mostly crotch rockets. Cars, no. Crotch rockets, yes. And I hope none of the 3 officers that ride those motorcycles are prepared to chase these guys, because that's putting their life in danger, because these guys can move. And for the most part, I would guess they're not drinking, because these guys can ride their bikes. They don't seem to be too impaired, the ones that have gone through my neighborhood. That just tells you a little bit about my experience up to date. But it's beginning already. It's warming up. It starts about 10, 11 o'clock. You talk about getting woke up at night. How about trying to go to sleep first? Okay. Thanks for the presentation, Chief. It seems like a multifaceted problem. I think it's going to take a village. I don't think the police department can be held responsible for the increase, because I think it's bigger than the police department. In the age of video on our phones, I think we all could play a part. If there was some way we could be resolved from legal responsibility for taking pictures of bikes or cars racing past us by getting a license plate number, and the police can do their investigation, whoever they are, if they can determine the speed of the vehicle, what have you. But to me, penalties have never prevented anybody from doing anything. If that was true, nobody would be in jail for drugs or anything else. So I don't think penalties is the answer. I really think it's going to take a citywide effort on the part of everybody, including the police department, but all of us, with our phones and whatever other ideas you could come up with. But I think the problem can be solved. It's just going to take some deep thinking here and address it, because I think it has gotten out of hand. And I'm surprised more people haven't been killed or run over in the city. I'm just amazed from what I see that something, I know there's been accidents, but kind of fearful of this summer, because people have been cooped up for a long time. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm just here to listen to everybody's stories, and they're probably not too dissimilar from my own. That I think it's escalated, and it's going to get worse unless we do something together. So,
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Yep.
Thank you. You had mentioned it's been progressive, and this is not unique to Fargo. It's happening across the country. I was doing a little bit of reading this afternoon, and Texas has been dealing with this since 2003. So it's like it's spreading across the country, and I'm sure YouTube and social media has probably encouraged that spread a bit. But some of the communities have actually developed community plans in dealing with this, including the business community as well as residents in trying to tackle this. So you're entirely right. I don't believe it's totally a law enforcement issue. Do you want to, I think there was a question about cameras and
Sure.
all of that.
So thanks for that suggestion. So on one hand, by law, we have to witness the violation to issue the ticket. However, and this could probably run through our intelligence area too, because one of the focuses is identifying people and motorcycles or cars. And so that might play a part as we kind of, lay out our plan a little further, because there's other ways to follow up and try and go after some of these things. So as you said, the motorcycles are tough. 2 nights ago, we responded down to the south end for some motorcycle racing or loud noises, and we had a sergeant on 64th Avenue. He could see the motorcycle coming towards him from the west. He could tell it was a high rate of speed, so he just waited for the bike to approach. And as the bike started getting closer, he flipped his lights on, and he had the bike clocked at 94 miles an hour at 12:30 in the morning on 64th Avenue South. And he turned around with the lights on, attempt to stop it, and not even a hesitation. So those types of things are tough because, we're not going to get a license plate on the front of a motorcycle. Sometimes they are very good about improperly placing them on the back, which is also a violation. So some of the other things we're going to be doing is looking for that when bikes are parked or when they're on the street and not properly registered. That could lead to impoundment as well. But if there's people in your neighborhood that are doing this, and you can get a picture with the bike with the plate or whatever, we could come up, I think, with a way to properly, receive that and try and put it into the intelligence analysis. That's good information for us. And I don't think that would be, we just wouldn't be able to issue a citation based on it, but it's going to help us start to build that information.
Someone else with a question? Oh, Norm.
My name is Norm Robinson. About 3 years ago, my wife and I moved from North Fargo to South Fargo. We lived relatively close to the airport in North Fargo, and I thought that was really something. But we moved to South Fargo. I live in what's called Harwood Groves. I'm one house from the river, so I'm pretty far off University. We were fortunate enough to build a great patio, and you all know where this story is going. Now when we sit out on the patio, that far away, I swear that we live next to a drag strip. And it gets under a person's skin, and it gets worse and worse and boils over. I saw on social media last summer, it started to really take off. A lot of people were commenting, let's put it that way. I want to agree with the gentleman over here. If there's anything we as citizens can do, please let us know. I think that this plan looks fantastic. The more we can get that plan out, the better. So again, whatever we can do, let's do it. I applaud what you are planning to do. I applaud what you're trying to do, but we've got to do something because it's
Chief,
not
can
pretty.
you, excuse me. Sorry, were you done?
I'm
Or-
done.
Okay. Chief, can you address the noise ordinance issue? Is there any hope in addressing the noise that comes from these?
Oops, yes. Well, I think it's going to be the same issue in terms of getting the car stopped, but I would call a friend at the other table if there's anything more specific on noise ordinances. But I think we're still dealing with the same issue. We got to get the person stopped to issue that violation. Yeah, okay, all right. But in terms of what can the community do for us, I mean, we got a great community, a lot of support. I think I want to kind of explore maybe an intelligence flow of information, because that really is helpful for us to know who's with what vehicle, specific times that this is going on, although frankly, I agree with you, and I'm on the south end too, and Sunday afternoon, there's some guy flopping around doing the loop on University, and it's extremely disconcerting. You're trying to enjoy your time outside. So, I mean, I think those types of ideas, and ultimately, we're going to need public support for any proposed legislation, right? So if we can get that going and we can get public support, because the legislators want to know that not only the community supports things of this nature, but that there's a statewide support for it, so they can go to Bismarck and try and get that passed in a partisan way, or I'm sorry, nonpartisan way. And I think we could get that kind of support, so that would be helpful. And then, you know, I guess maybe someday we might be at somebody's house going, hey, who was driving your car? So I hope you're cooperative that way. Well, it's probably not anyone in this group, but, you know, and it's going to be someone's kid is going to be doing some of this. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, if we're able to identify who that person is and we can end that behavior, that helps a lot because it won't repeat itself most likely. But right now, all of these people are out there with pretty much impunity in what they're doing because they know, absent blowing a tire or turning in the wrong place where they can't get out of, we're not going to be able to catch up to them or stop them.
So let me just also say, one of the areas I did not mention is downtown. And that's been, the concern down there has been more of a noise issue. And there is one car, and I can tell you exactly what car it is. Goes around every evening about 9 o'clock, and he's done something to his engine so it pops really loud. And it just echoes off the building. So that's another area that's got noise problems. Dawn?
Hi, I'm Dawn Morgan. Is this okay? All right. I just have been following this for quite a while because I live on Fifth Avenue South in University area. And I'm awoken many nights, especially toward the weekends, with the loud sound of the cars. They do race, and they do have that popping sound that they can do. I talked to our police chief just this afternoon about that, and he was saying it's possibly something that can be installed with the special mufflers that make more sound. And so what I've been seeing on social media, especially next door, is that people think it's gunshots. And that is another scary repercussion, because that means to those people that believe that we're surrounded by very dangerous people. So I try to make comment. Other people say, no, it was fireworks. But it can't be fireworks every night. So it's everywhere. And I noticed on Broadway too, I don't know about the 9 p.m. person, but even in the day, they'll go downtown and look for races. They'll drive up and down Broadway and they'll do their little gunshot thing. And they're probably looking for somebody to race with. So it's all over the place, and these are special cars too. They're not just your average kid's car. These cars have had lots of work done on them, many of them anyway, and some of them are very fast cars. So it is a spectacle, but it's not something that most others enjoy other than the race.
I'm going to interrupt here just a little bit. Is there anybody online? No? Okay, good. All right. I think is there another person? All right.
Here?
Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Connie, and I live on 13th Avenue North and 3rd Street, and we've lived there since 1981. And the last 2 years have just been torture. My husband says every day, if I wanted to build at the racetrack, a house next to the racetrack, I would have moved to West Fargo. So it gets very tiring. I think a lot of the noise we hear is probably cars from North Fargo heading down to maybe 45th. I'm not sure, but a lot of us in the neighborhood have talked about, they have a planned route which takes them down 12th Avenue, maybe down 4th. A lot of them are going now on the toll bridge, what goes on over there. But this will start, like this gentleman said, about 10:15, 10:30 at night, and it's gone as late as 1:30, and it's just one after the other. Our main issue where we live is the noise, because you can hear it probably way over at North High from where we live. And then you can tell they're racing or they're following each other. You always hear at least 2 cars together. And there's a guy that goes down my block every day. I could get many pictures of him. He's got a big black spoiler on the back of his lousy little Toyota, and it's just a piece of junk, but he thinks it's great. But it is very annoying. Now that we're retired, we really notice it more than the people that work, of course. But the other component is it really does affect the whole community and Moorhead as well. Do you remember when they were trying to quiet the bridges back many years? And it was called Project Quiet Zone. And they spent, what, $8 million getting these trains or whatever to, lower their whistle at least during some of their trips through town, in different intersections. And maybe we need to get a new Project Quiet Zone version 2 for this, because it does not just affect the downtown people that are in that area. It affects all of North Fargo for sure. And also something interesting that could affect all of us is if you have ever looked at Realtor.com and Zillow, they were all adding a new feature called noise indicator. And they will figure out how much noise you can hear from within your house and from outside of your house. What is normal to Zillow, as far as street noise and whatnot. And there was a lovely house over on 12th Avenue, which is extremely busy now because of the toll bridge lift of a fee. So they get bombed with traffic at 8 and 5. That's incredible. But that's also the route the racers take, I think, at night, because I can hear them heading down towards City Hall here this way. And the house was for sale, and it took an extraordinary amount of time. Houses in our neighborhood usually sell within just a couple days, and that sat for quite a while. And I just kind of have to wonder if any potential buyer sat out there and listened to that noise and thought, oh, geez, all my bedrooms face 12th Avenue. This one's not for me. And we could all have that problem when we all eventually do, move from our homes. And I don't know how you begin to control noise. But these are souped up cars, and I don't know. I had a 1972 Cuda as my first car that I bought, so I can't say too much. But, these kids, they don't care about what time they're road racing around town and making them.
As soon as a police car shows up or anybody in uniform shows up, they disperse. So, yeah, it goes back to how many people you have out in the street, and you can't cover every corner of the world. So I think there was another question. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Doug Restemeyer. I've lived happily in the Rose Creek addition, the south end of it. I've also been honored to be our Homeowners Association president since the inception. We have several of our neighbors here tonight. I think we're kind of at the epicenter of the what I think is the epicenter anyway, 52nd and University. First, I would like to thank you, Arlette and Chief, for organizing this tonight and recognizing that this is a major, major issue. I say I've enjoyed living there for 20 years, but it's really enjoyed about 15 years. Because really the last 5 years and really the last 3 years have become almost intolerable. And your graph of where the fleeing instances started to escalate is when my wife and I have certainly seen the escalation in the noise. And it really is two things. It's noise, and that's the one that we hear, but eventually it's going to be a safety issue because 52nd and University, there's already been some major problems, accidents there, and it's just a ticking time bomb in my estimation. So, and I agreed with the lady back here that eventually it's going to be an economic issue because real estate values are going to decline. I've talked to 2 people that have left the Rose Creek neighborhood strictly because of noise. They've moved down to the Kindred area. And I don't want to do that, but my wife is already threatening, and I don't want to leave Rose Creek. But my wife is threatening that we've got to go. And I really don't want to do that. I'm not sure I have what the solution is, but I can tell you that my wife is I call her Mrs. Safety, she's one of your non-deputized officers, because we've gone to Don's Car Wash on a Friday night at 8 o'clock. There's 20 cars there, and my wife has the owner's phone number, because she'll call him, and one night there's about 25 cars there, and there's 2 police officers came, and I don't know if they wrote up tickets or whatever, but I think that's part of the community involvement that can happen, that we're out there self-policing it, but there's got to be more than that. It's a major, major problem. So I don't know, maybe some of it's infrastructure in terms of even at 52nd and University, a roundabout. I know that's a big, big expensive deal, but just recognize from our homeowners, I hear it a lot, and it's a big issue. We've got to really come up with some solution. Thank you.
It has a huge impact on neighborhoods, that's for sure. I'm going to take just a couple of seconds here and ask Brenda. I know that from the emails I've been getting, there have been questions about increased number of traffic lights, roundabouts have been mentioned, speed bumps have been mentioned. Do you want to just address those a bit, if you can?
So there are tools. Roundabouts are one tool that we would have at our different intersections. They take up a little more right of way. I know, especially along 52nd Avenue, that right of way is a little bit more narrow. I think where we're trying to find is how do we balance everything, right? So they are arterials. They do carry heavy traffic loads. So how do we get that balance of trying to help mitigate that speed along with the daily safety of driving? 52nd Avenue, just to talk about 52nd Avenue and University, that's going to be a little more unique of an intersection just because we are seeing issues along the river bank side. So we will have that struggle a little bit, but we do have tools. So my job here today is to listen and try and understand where maybe some of those issues are, and do we have some tools that can help mitigate that we could take to the commissioners.
And I appreciate you being here, so thank you. There was a question here, I believe.
Yes, my name is Paul Lear. My wife and I and our children have lived in our home since 2001. We're on the west side of South University, just south of 37th Avenue. I can tell you that I'm not exaggerating when people have sped past at 55 to 70 plus miles an hour. And Chief Zabolski, you verified that when you said someone was going 93 with a motorcycle. So I'd help you identify the drivers, but they go by so fast. I don't know who's driving. So honestly, I've seen motorcyclists going down South University doing wheels. It's maybe a question you can answer at some point. Is South University Drive part of Highway 81? Can we involve the State Highway Patrol in part of the efforts and some of the others? It sounds like you're going to do that. I really believe the city needs to keep up the police force with the growth before it gets out of hand. We want to have a nice city and a civil city and a city where people want to live and enjoy and move to. You know, we give a lot of tax incentives in this city for growth. Maybe what we have to do, and I'm pro-growth, don't get me wrong, but maybe what we need to do to keep up the growth is we also need to balance that, or maybe reduce some of the incentives and use some of that new tax revenue to help our police department and to beef it up. And, you know, the one last thing I'll say is, I saw a guy doing a wheelie on a motorcycle yesterday, just at the corner on Veterans Boulevard. I was in that area, and 40th Avenue. And this guy was zooming in and out for a half a mile, a young man. I have his license number. And the ruckus it was causing with the other drivers there, and even the ones that come down South University. And I often think, I'm not just concerned about the neighbors with the kids in the backyard, or the noise in my backyard, or the innocent driver that's next to the guy doing the wheelie. But I also am a little concerned and have a little empathy for these drivers that need a place to go to vent their acceleration out of their foot or out of their wrist. And maybe they need a place to go do this, but in the meantime, we have a law to enforce, and we need to keep doing that. And I think I have concern and a little empathy for the driver of the motorcycle that's doing the wheelie. And I think, man, there's trucks hauling aggregate or gravel up and down University, and all it takes is one or two little stones when he's doing a wheelie to wipe out and to be seriously injured or killed. And I think as a parent, all the years of raising that child, and now that child could be dead. And so I empathize with them too. And so I think this is a comprehensive matter. So I appreciate everything you can do to help us out.
Thank you very much. Is there another individual out here somewhere? Microphone? All right, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Barbara Weber, and I live on 10th Street South. And I don't think 10th Street South has been mentioned yet as a war zone, but I live close to St. Anthony's, and the stoplight there on 9th Avenue is a perfect place to start a race. And then if you can take off there, make it past the 5th Avenue stoplight, you know, and then get past the 1st Avenue stoplight and make it to the tunnel and really rev your engines, it's glorious. And then it's my understanding from a neighbor that they gather up at Labby's. So you have a natural racetrack with 10th Street, both south and north, and then University, north and south. It is a built-in racetrack. So my suggestion, one suggestion would be to get rid of one-ways, one-way streets where it's set up for racing. My next question or point I want to make is, in talking to my children about this, they live out west, but I've mentioned it enough to them. David looked up what other cities are doing, and I just sent to you a link to what they are doing in Paris now, where they have the cameras and then they have a decibel reader at the same time. And I don't know what that would cost or if it's even available here, because I think it was only 3 years ago that they've done it in Paris. But Arlette has the information that I've sent her, and I think that's another possibility. But when I was one of the first ones here because I thought it was 5 o'clock, and there was a gentleman here that I talked to, a young man who came up with an idea, Mr. Weir, that same idea. These people who have this drive to make the noise and to speed, that has to be taken care of in some way. And if they could do it legally and safely, that would be surely a preference. And he doesn't want to talk, and that's fine. Thank you very much. I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you. Yeah, there's been a few communities that have actually organized between law enforcement and drag race tracks, giving those individuals an outlet for doing some of that. While you were talking, it reminded me, and this might be a question for Brenda. So late at night, some of the major arterials, do all of the streetlights turn green unless the side streets trigger a stop there? And is that helping to cause the high-speed racing?
So unfortunately, our traffic engineer was not here today, but yes, typically during off-peak hours at night, they are green on the arterial, and then if a vehicle comes on the side street, that will trigger it to turn red. And so, so that is how the timing works today.
So that might be a fairly easy solution to reprogram those, or?
So I think, so those are things we collaboratively need to talk about, because by making people stop, now they're revving their engines and they're starting again. So you have a speeding issue and you have a noise issue. So how do you balance that? So I think those are things collaboratively that we need to discuss, and how do you mitigate one over the other? I know they're both causing issues.
Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Dottie Arnold, and I live in the Woodhaven area, right near Rose Creek, not too far. We back up to 45th, which hasn't been spoken about tonight, but it also is a racetrack. It's from 40th to 52nd. There's no stoplights. It starts about 6 o'clock at night, goes till 10, 11, midnight, and it's very loud. We can't even sit in our backyard anymore. It's that bad. But one thing that was mentioned was about the racetrack, and there's a racetrack in Sabin that's been there since at least 1964, because my husband has raced out there, and he got in contact with the gentleman that owns it. And there's a possibility he might look into having something out there, but he's got staffing issues. He would have to pay those people to be there. There would have to be an ambulance on site. So it's not just, let's let him go out to the drag strip and run, because you've got safety issues out there too. But maybe that's something that the police chief and the county could go out and talk to him about and see if there's a possibility that something could be worked out with a safe way for these people. And I understand that, you know, they love to run their fast cars, but pop-up wheelies, I counted one time 20 motorcycles going on 45th, and they were all doing wheelies. And that is dangerous. But thank you for everything you're trying to do. We appreciate it.
I just wanted to comment, there was a question on police staffing and what we've done. So for the last 5 years, we've had 5 police officers a year, basically 46 officers have been added to the police force. The chief last year, when he got some emails from Arlette and myself about the traffic issues we were having, started a task force with his command staff. He came to us and asked for $800,000 to redo the command staff, and that's what they did. We've changed the order of how we do things. Last fall, we started talking about this traffic problem, and that's when the chief came back with the traffic unit. We started the motorcycles back again. But somebody who talked here, this is a village, and we have to work together on this. So when the wheelies are 40, my motorcycles are going on the street, you've got to call the police force. We have intelligent policing as well, which what they would do is that oftentimes if you take snapshots or something, they can do that and then make it a priority to do that. And when last fall we started to do priority on this, we did more arrests and picked up more people. But the crowd is exactly right. We'll devalue our properties if we don't get on this. We will continue to ask police, there's a certain ratio you try to do for your community, that will continue to happen. And what partially happens with our police force is they start to then, just like an ambulance is somewhere in the town where the highest number of things are going on, it will be a more focused on traffic issues versus all the other calls they take a day. So it's just part of what the struggle we have is we are a big city now. And police officers, how many calls, Chief, a day do you get when you're out on the road? Well, he doesn't go out on the road, sorry about that, but maybe Travis or Chris knows that, but they take a fair amount of calls daily on different issues. So this is going to be something that we have to focus on. But I want to, Arlette, this is something she's wanted to focus on a little bit, and thank you for having this this evening. But that's the question, hear from the public and then try to come up with some solutions that we will. I wanted to ask one question. How many people here would be okay with, if we put cameras in certain segments of our community, would you be okay if we gave you a ticket? Because that's what we're really going to have to look at, is an ordinance in the state, and can we give tickets just from cameras? And I think that would help a lot. That's something we could do as well.
Oh, as long as it's like a game camera that you use in the woods and it's maintained by somebody in the neighborhood, or it's not a permanent feature.
Well, it would be just like your traffic stoplights. Those cameras work all the time, and then they can get a license off of it. They can do a variety of things off of it. But, you know, good for gain is that if we have people that are doing things wrong, you're going to catch them. Now, I would assume you're not going to run a red light. I'm going to
No, I
assume
came
you're
up here on a motorcycle too, so I'm thinking
Yeah.
about just waiting until everybody's gone before I get on it again.
Yeah. But that's something, again, this task force will continue to work on, and part of the reason to bring the traffic unit back is let's look at this really hard, and if there's any suggestions from France or anywhere else, if there's something we can do better, let's do it, and that's what I think we'll continue to focus on.
We've started to develop some lists of things that we would like to take to the legislature. So that's where the community support will come in, and it'll be important. Yeah, go ahead.
My name's Amy Linney, and I live in Rose Creek, as lots of you. My backyard is Avenue, oops, cut out. I can also see 25th Street from my windows. We're just a couple houses over. I actually have 2 young children who I was trying to walk to the park with them the other day, and we almost got hit waiting at the stoplight by Bishops Boulevard because people were going so fast and blowing through that stoplight. My kids joke about the amount of noise that we hear. We all sleep with noise machines. We hear the noise. We say we are thankful as soon as the snow falls because then the noise stops or at least reduces. It's starting back up again. We notice it about from Thursday to Sunday, roughly from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. I don't know, it could be longer. Hopefully I'm sleeping by that point. It's just awful. My husband and I just moved to Rose Creek almost 2 years ago, and I said, this is what we moved into. And my husband said, what, do you want to sell your house? Now we just moved. And I said, I don't know. I had no idea what we were moving into. I thought we were moving into our dream home, our forever home, and it's awful. I have my kids that, this noise is horrific. I joke and I call them the fart mobiles, because that's what it sounds like, running down the street. They're revving their engine. Like they said, I look out my back window, I can see them doing wheelies. I see it. I can see the cars racing. It's hours and hours. I have to turn up my TV because I can't hear my TV over the noise. And then one suggestion was not necessarily the speed bumps that Brenda had mentioned, but maybe speed tables and multiple speed tables that could be possibly removable. So then it wouldn't be an issue for snow removal in the winter.
Yeah, okay, thank you. One issue that was brought up a little earlier was the University 10th Street pair and looking at making them 2 ways. That study is actually getting started, I believe. Do you want to address that?
Yes, so if you live in that University 10th Street, that study is just starting and is just kicking off. And so you'll start seeing some public engagement in regards to that. So I suggest come on down and so we can get input and understand what the thoughts are in regards to that.
One more, and we're getting on an hour, a little over an hour. Unless there's a whole lot more, we'll probably try to close it up. Yeah, George.
Arlette, thank you, and thanks. Thank you for holding this. Thanks to the chief. Thanks to the mayor. Thanks to everybody for coming. I've been pushing on this issue for a while. Arlette knows that. My wife and I live in Rose Creek, and we've been there for well over 20 years. We love where we live. We used to be able to sit outside and listen to the concerts over at Blue Stem. Not anymore. Not anymore. We don't even want to hardly go out at night. The other night, my wife was awakened at 1:30 in the morning, street racing. She woke me up. She was angry. It's just not any fun anymore to live there. And we know, just by the people in the room that we haven't met before, that this isn't just our part of town. This isn't just Rose Creek. It's up on 19th Avenue. It's way north Fargo. It's all over. And to be honest, the study and then the research that I've done, it is a nationwide problem, and in some cases, it's a worldwide problem. I think it's going to take a lot of different kinds of solutions. The main thing that I found in my reading that the best way to deal with this is urban design. And we're not going to change our city very much to get that done in the time that we need. So we're going to have really bombard these folks, I think, with law enforcement. We're going to have a strict, we're going to have stop them. We're going to have to really do something to really wake them up. Some of the cities and states have gone to 30-day losing your cars, thousands of dollars fines, years losing your car. I think those kind of options will wake some people up. But I don't think the idea of a racetrack will work. It's been tried in many places. You get the same 25 people that go there every time. And these other people, they want excitement. Part of their excitement is breaking the law. Part of their excitement is doing these wheelies out on the streets. I mean, we know that. And that's what all of everything that you read tells you that. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of reading on this, and we have a major problem in our city. We have a major problem. And it's why people want to move to Oxbow. It's why people move out of the city. It's why people move to different places, because they don't want to do this anymore. They don't want to live in this, and we have to find a solution. I thank you again for doing this, and let's work together to find some solutions. Thanks, everybody.
And that's a perfect segue. I think there's probably one more individual that would like to say something, but I'm going to, and Brenda has heard this more than once from me. So the whole issue of road design and traffic calming concepts being incorporated into our road designs to try to get that speed down. I think that's an issue long-term. It's probably going to be very difficult to do anything about our current streets, but long-term, that is an issue. All right, there was one more in the back, and then I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, if we have time, just a quick, my name is Warren Hansen. My backyard is 52nd Avenue, and I'm not as eloquent and won't be as detailed as Doug and George so stated things so well, and Doug has watched out for us in Rose Creek for many, many years. I am an original homeowner from 1997, backed up to 52nd. It was a 2-lane highway when we moved in there. So I have seen the progression that the other gentleman mentioned here. And knowing that's a section line, arterial road, we knew it was going to be lowered, we knew it was going to be widened. We expect some noise and some traffic. And we have said for years that when we go to show our house, we're not going to let the realtors in from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. From day one. We just expect that. What we didn't expect is the drag racing and the acceleration, the downhill, what has happened in the last 3 to 5 years. Because it kind of shuts down around Thanksgiving with the weather, and then it cranks up again as soon as it hits 50 degrees here, And yeah, I can't ID anybody because they're moving too fast, and no one's mentioned it tonight, but I think a police report from last summer, WDAY or Channel 11, one of them had a story. Probably shouldn't have said that, but someone was clocked at 105 on 52nd Avenue South, okay? Because I estimated when people are going by 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, they start at Don's Car Wash there when the light turns green, and how they make it past Bishop's or University without, I just wait for the accident. You wait for the crash. How that doesn't happen more often, I don't understand. But they are going so fast that it's hard to even see the color of the cars and the vehicles. So yes, it has gotten worse. Any quick hits that can be put in place in short order, much appreciated. Again, thanks to the panel for having us, and appreciate what you're doing.
And thank
one
you.
last thing.
Yes.
Maybe no one else here, but I have seen the damage that a vehicle coming through the fence on Rose Creek, and a vehicle can come through that fence. I didn't witness the crash. I heard the crash. I was the first one to call 911, and so on and so forth. But it can happen.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah.
One more?
Okay.
Will you do one more?
All right, sure.
Okay.
Everybody okay with one more, and then we'll close it up.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Richmond, and I live on 5th Street North. And we don't have a traffic problem, right? We don't. We have a hospital that blocks Fifth Street. It's not an arterial, it's a neighborhood street. We have had one fatal car wreck near us. Okay, a little bit of background. Before moving to Fargo 11 years ago, I was the assistant fire chief and the head of emergency medical services for the beautiful little town of Alsea, Oregon. You've never heard of it. 950 people, 400 square miles. So we didn't have a car racing problem there. Motorcycle racing wasn't a problem. I had a track at my house. I like adrenaline, people. I love adrenaline. But I agree with the person here who said racetracks aren't going to solve the issue. But what might solve the issue, enforcement, chief, officers, you guys can do all you want, and you're still going to have this problem. Because how many are there in your department? 100? 200? You just can't enforce it away. Engineering, you can engineer it away. I guarantee you, I could eliminate fast driving on University and 10th in 1 month. But the general population will not be happy with what I will suggest. Somebody here mentioned a traffic solution that worked in Paris, France. My wife and I have had the privilege of bicycling in France. Pre-COVID, we used to take our bike and go somewhere. And one of those somewheres was Burgundy in France. French traffic law is different than in the US. If you're driving a car and you hit a bicycle or a pedestrian, you lose your license for a year. No question. Here, it's gone. We don't have that in this city. We don't have that in the United States in most places. We did see in the state of Oregon a remarkable decline in drunk driving in one population in the 1990s when Bill Clinton was president, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement decided that anyone convicted of a misdemeanor would be deported from the US. Simultaneously, our district attorney, which is the equivalent of your state attorney here, decided that any drunk driving citation would include a reckless endangering citation, which was a misdemeanor. So it was no longer just a traffic citation, it was a misdemeanor. The rate of drunk driving among the Hispanic population in the state of Oregon sank like a rock, and it's never become socially acceptable again in that population to drink and drive. That was our experience in our little town. You never had car wrecks with Hispanic drivers who were drunk. If you were here as a US citizen or you were here as a legal resident, it was insulting to those who were not here with citizenship or legal residency. You just didn't do it. And folks, Fargo has to get to the point where driving like, quite frankly, pardon my French, but driving like a jackass is no longer acceptable in this place.
Okay. Anything more? We'll
My
wrap it up here.
one statement would be also, most of my miles in Fargo are as a pedestrian or bicyclist. You would be amazed at how all of us need to be aware when we drive. Think about it, folks. The speed limit is 35 on 12th Avenue. Who goes 35 on 12th Avenue? It's not going to be law enforcement, because if the general speed, if the 85% speed is 45 miles an hour, you can't enforce it. You can't enforce it away. But you could engineer it away. That's going to be my takeaway. You can't enforce it away, but you can engineer it away.
All right. Well, I, again, appreciate you all coming this evening. I don't know if anybody up here wants to make any final comments of any sorts. Chief, you look like you're ready to.
Sure, let's be brief. We have identified a common problem here, and we're going to work together to solve it. So I think continued community support, collaboration, communication. We're going to follow up on a few things on our end. But we're with you in all of this. We're equally as frustrated as you are. Many of us live in those same neighborhoods and have the same experiences. So We're going to work on tackling this, and hopefully we'll get also some legislative help, and we'll come to you for that assistance as well. So maybe we'll have a few more of these going forward. We can kind of keep you abreast of what type of progress we're making. But thank you for your attendance and your input.
And I am truly committed to making sure that the community is engaged on this issue. So I don't think it's necessarily something that law enforcement is going to be able to solve all by itself. So hopefully we'll keep you in the loop, and I'm assuming we can use the website probably for information flow. And again, thank you so much for coming. Thanks.